If you want to nail your next job interview, this video is for you. Today we're going to talk about the most common mistakes that people make in a job interview and how to solve them. Over the past 10 years, I've interviewed hundreds of candidates for a range of roles from design to development. Regardless of the role, there's some common mistakes that people make, and these can be the difference between getting and not getting the job. There's nothing worse than getting an interview at your dream job and then watching it fall apart in the interview itself, particularly if you don't know where it all went wrong. These mistakes are really easy to avoid, and today I'm going to give you some practical tips to maximize your chances of landing the role you want. Make sure you stick around to the end, as I'm going to show you a tip to demonstrate the single most important quality that you can show in an interview. Okay, let's start with the basics. The first thing to get in check is your presentation and preparation. When I say presentation, I mean how you present yourself to the interviewer. It's super important to dress appropriately. And note that I said appropriately and not just smartly. You need to understand the business you're applying for and turn up dressed how you would for work. For more traditional industries like finance and law, this is most likely a suit. But for things like a tech startup or a creative agency, it almost always isn't. If you show up to a job interview wearing a suit when they all wear streetwear, it shows that you don't really understand the company you're applying to. Clothes represent who you are as a person. And if you can show that you've got similar interests through the things you wear, you're off to a great start. You can work out what's appropriate by looking through a company's social media channels or LinkedIn, see what other people wear. And if they don't have any of these profiles or accounts, make sure you ask these questions during an initial screening or through email conversation before the interview. And finally, if you're on a video call for the interview, try to think about your background. I know it's not always in your control, but do your best to make it clear and avoid background noise so the focus is on you. Now on to preparation. This one is simple. Do your research. Being able to show that you understand the business in full shows that you're serious about the opportunity. If you're asked about the company and don't even know the basics, I guarantee you have lost the job. Why would someone hire you if you've not even bothered to understand the business you're applying for? Don't be that person. 30 minutes of research before will make all the difference. Similarly, make sure you know your CV thoroughly and have it and any other tasks that you've prepared to hand in case you need it as a reference. If you're on a call, this is even easier, as you can have it open in another tab and quickly glance at it if an interviewer references a specific point. Being able to quickly expand on a point in your CV gives the interviewer confidence and it legitimizes what you've put in the CV. And that's presentation and preparation. Now let's talk about the next point, being concise and honest. Interviewers are people just like you. It's your job to keep them engaged throughout the interview. If you bore them, you're unlikely to make a lasting impression or secure the job. So firstly, don't waffle and don't use textbook responses. Use clear, simple language to explain your understanding. Remember that interviewers have probably spoken to lots of candidates, and if you use the same responses that you found on some blog article, you're going to sound like everyone else. Similarly, don't use terminology that you don't fully understand, and most importantly, do not lie. As an interviewer, it's extremely obvious when someone doesn't believe or understand what they're saying, and regardless of whether or not they verbally call you out on it, they will know. If you don't know the perfect answer to a question, it's better to be honest and explain what you do know that's relevant rather than reciting some textbook answer that you found online. Interviewers will respect your honesty, and it's probably not as big of an issue as you think it is. People can always learn, and particularly if you're early on in your career, you're not expected to know everything. It's more important to a potential manager that you can communicate effectively and be honest about your strengths and weaknesses. And that brings me on to my next point, being positive and punctual. This needs no explanation, just be on time. It's so easy to ensure you're there on time, and if you can't do that, you're setting yourself up for failure from the outset. Don't be super early, don't be super late, be on time. And if the office is in a shared space, make sure to allow yourself some extra time to find the office inside the building. It doesn't matter if you're in the building on time. If you're not where the interviewer expects you to be at the time of your interview, you're late. And equally, if you're traveling into the office and there's a legitimate delay, just be proactive and tell your contact at the business. They'll appreciate your honesty and they won't be awkwardly standing around waiting for you. And I can't believe I have to say this, but there's no excuse for being late to a video interview. The number of times I've had to wait around for candidates on a video call is frankly ridiculous. Check your setup in advance. Make sure you have the software you need for the call, make sure your video quality is good, and make sure people can hear you. Waiting for the candidate to join the video call is likely to put the interviewer off before you've even started. And speaking of putting off an interviewer, try to be constructive if you're asked to provide criticism on either your current or your potential future employer. It's a really common question to ask why you're looking for a new role, and how you phrase your answer will really impact how you're perceived. It's important to give a constructive and balanced account of your grievances in your current role, as it shows your potential employer what matters to you. However, if this turns into an unsubstantiated rant about your current situation, it will end up working against you. Rather than just saying that everything's terrible in your current role, explain why it's not right for you and what you're looking for in a future role instead. This shows that you've thought about how to avoid these issues in the future culture, it says a lot about your personality and problem-solving aptitude. And this brings us on to one of the most important things that people often forget to show in an interview, and that's your personality. A common mistake that people make when they're really nervous about an interview is to hide their personality behind this weird, fake professionalism that only ever actually happens in the interview itself. When you do this, you're not actually showing that you can be professional, you're just hiding what it would be like to actually work with you. And this can make it really difficult for an employer to understand if you'd actually be a good fit in the business. If you're nervous, do everything you can to stay calm and relaxed. At the end of the day, an interview is just two people talking, so try not to overthink it. Your job during an interview isn't just to show your credentials, it's to show your employer that you're someone that they'd like to work with every day. This means showing you have similar interests, are fun and easy to work with, and closely align with the business's culture. Even the best candidate can lose out on an opportunity if the employer just fundamentally isn't excited about talking to them every day. So just be yourself. You'll either get on or you won't, but if you don't, it's probably not a business that you want to work at long term anyway, so try not to worry about it. Last, but certainly not least, we have what I think is the single most important thing that you can demonstrate in an interview, and that is passion. This might sound cliche, but anything you can do to show that you genuinely care about the industry, role, and business will go a long way to showing the interviewer you're the right person for the job. At the end of the day, skills can be taught and experience is only gained through time. So one of the key ways to differentiate yourself is with your passion. Show that you're up to date with changes in the industry and that you spend some of your personal time becoming better at your craft. Try to talk about some of your personal projects. This shows that you're genuinely interested in what you do and not just looking for a salary. Particularly in more junior roles, the best candidates aren't actually the ones with the most experience, but the ones that the interviewer believes will learn the fastest by putting in the time and the effort. If you can demonstrate that that's you, you'll probably get the job. Here's one simple trick that you can use to demonstrate passion in an interview, and that's to have one clever question about the business up your sleeve. This should be a question that loosely, but doesn't exactly relate to the role you're applying for. It shows that you've done more research than just how to get the job, and if you can catch the interviewer off guard, you'll make a lasting impression. As an example, if you're applying for a product role, you could ask the company about how a new monetization strategy that they used in a recent release worked, and why they chose that over something else. This shows that you've done your research, are curious about the wider business, and can analyze it and its products effectively. It also shows that your interest and understanding go beyond the scope of your role and will make the interviewer remember you, which at the end of the day is what it's all about. And that brings us to the end of the video. Hopefully you found this useful and are feeling more prepared about an upcoming interview. If you got any questions, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Thanks.